Hello and welcome to the FastAPI course. This FastAPI is a super fast Python web framework. There are other frameworks like Django or Flask or maybe other, but FastAPI is very modern and it has a very nice feature of asynchronous programming, which is still lacking in Django framework. So let's see how this fast API is going to make your life easy by having lots of features. So first, the very best feature I really like is automatic documentations. Whenever you create any API, then how you are going to check them. Generally, we use the Postman, but that's not a good thing. So by default, FastAPI provide you the Swagger UI. This is a very nice UI where you can simply check what are the routes we have created or API endpoints you have created. Not only that, you can also try them out, check what is you are creating, how it is going to respond. If you don't like the Swagger UI, FastAPI provide you another nice Redoc UI. This is the same but having a very nice and minimal design for the documentation. So automatic documentation is the best thing for the FastAPI. Next, I really like that since this is a modern framework, it also uses the modern features of Python. It uses Python 3.6 and more, and using the Pydantic library, this FastAPI provides you the typing system. That means you can type hint the variable and other things. Like here we can see that user ID should be string or maybe ID should be the integer. So these kind of things you can achieve with the FastAPI because it is modern and using latest Python. Next important feature is it is totally based upon the OpenAPI and JSON schema. So OpenAPI is a Linux foundation under Linux Foundation, and it defines actually how you create your API. And since it is based upon this OpenAPI standards, you are going to create the API in a very recommended way or standardized API. It also has the JSON schema. That means it by default return JSON, which every modern API need to communicate with other things. So that's how it is so great. Next important feature is the code editor's autocomplete. Yes, FastAPI has the autocomplete feature in VS Code. Also, if you like to use the PyCharm, then in the PyCharm also it's going to complete the autocomplete the code you are writing using these IDs. And this again achieved by the use of the typing system using the Pydantic library of Python. So that's why it's very important to autocomplete things so that you can write FastAPI really fast. Next important feature is this security and standard. Yes, FastAPI provide you HTTP basic securities, the OAuth 2 with the JWT token. You can send the API token in header, query, cookies, etc. So that's an amazing feature. Other than that, we have a dependency injection, unlimited plugins, testing. You can test your application, no need to have any different library. It has its own system. Yeah, it uses PyTest to test your applications. Since FastAPI also uses Starlet is another framework of Python, but since this FastAPI is built over this Starlet, and Starlet provide WebSocket support, GraphQL support, in progress background task, startup and shutting down of events. That means all these things are available in FastAPI. This Starlet has provided other features just like these, but everything is now available in FastAPI. No need to learn any other thing. If you have a previous knowledge of Starlet, that will be amazing. Next, other supports for SQL database, NoSQL database, and GraphQL. So you can see the FastAPI is really a package of full web framework. So what we are going to learn in this course? we are going to get a start with the FastAPI. That means how we can install and set up things, how we can understand the basic structure of FastAPI. Then we will land upon some basic concepts like path parameters and API docs for Swagger and Redux, how you get the query parameter, how you perform the request queries. Then we will move to the intermediate concepts like debugging your FastAPI application. Then pydantic schemes, what are these? Pydantic schemas, what are they? How you can use the SQL Alchemy to connect to the database. Then how we can create the models and using that model create the table in our database. So that will be used by the SQL Alchemy ORM. Next, we will going to talk about the database task like CRUD related things for the blog like storing, getting, updating and reading. All these things we will do in the database part. Then we will talk about some responses, how we can handle the exception and return the response, and how we can define the response model so that we can only show certain fields which we only want, like we don't want to show the password of the user, so how we can restrict that thing using the response model. Next we will going to talk about the user and the password. So first we will create the user, then we will hash the password using the bcrypt algorithm, and then we will going to show the user and defining the documentation tags. That's amazing feature. Next is a great thing called relationship. Since we are using SQL Alchemy and SQL Alchemy provide the relationship between the blog and the user, so we are going to create the two-way relationship in FastAPI. Next we will going to talk about the refactoring for the bigger application. So yes, we will going to start the application in a very funky way. Wherever we want, we write the code, but later we need to refactor it for the different thing. Like first we will go and create the routers and then define some parameters for the routers. This is going to be the proper structured application. Next we will talk about the authentication using JWT. JWT stands for JSON Web Token. So first we will create a login route where we can provide the username and the password. Then we will verify the password using the hash algorithm. Then we will return the JWT and move all other routes behind the authentication. And finally, we are going to deploy our application using data.sh website. Isn't it amazing? So let's really see what will be the final product we will going to have. So this is the final product of our application. This is a FastAPI Swagger documentation, and we can also check this same thing with the Redux, and not docs, just Redoc. And this is going to have our application. You can see authentication route, blog routes, user route. I like to have the Swagger one, which is more like a friendly one. So you can see we have all the blog related routes behind the authentication. We have this lock, and if we try this out, it's not going to execute. And if we try, it says, hey, you are unauthorized. We return a 401 status code with a nice message. But that only happened after we authenticate the user. So Swagger provide a very nice authentication system. So let's log in here using this email and the password we have defined, and now you can see these locks are visible, or you can say active, and this means now if we try to execute the same route, we are getting the blogs with the relationship we have created for the creator. We are getting the data for the creator, so everything is there. That's amazing. So yeah, we have this kind of structure for login. We can try this out by providing the username here, and in that way we will going to get in return the JWT token. So if we try it out, click on execute, you can see we are getting this access token. This is a really long JWT token which is having a type of bearer. Okay, So that's saying we are also having final thing which is called user, and you can see we have this doc tags, and these are we have defined, and everything is here. So this thing is going to be really fun and amazing, and let's see how we can build this API thing using FastAPI. And first thing you need to know is this person. Sebastian is the creator of FastAPI. You can see this is the GitHub repository, and his GitHub repository name, or GitHub username actually, is Tangolo. I don't know what's the meaning of this, but that's cool. So he has created this FastAPI, and you can see this is a Python framework for creating a fast API. That means FastAPI, high performance, easy to learn. Yes, this is extremely easy to learn, fast to code, ready for production, everything. 26.6 for now. Obviously it's going to increase. 1.8k I think branches, no, not branches, forks, I think. Yeah, it's fork. Okay, so this is the FastAPI, you can say, GitHub page. And if you want to visit this, how you can get it? Simply say FastAPI on your Google, and then the first thing you will get is fastapi.tangolo.com. You can simply click here and it will land to the, you can say, the document or maybe the landing page of FastAPI. That's cool, everything is same. So this is the GitHub repository, this is the creator, and this is the website. Since FastAPI is a Python framework, that means you need Python, obviously, but that should be, or that must be actually, greater than 3.6 version of the Python. So let's see what version of Python I have. So if I just say Python -- version, you can see we have 2.7.16, which is not good. But actually I had Python 3. And if I check Python 3, yes, it is 3.8.2. So 3.8.2 is there. That means if I need the pip, so I need to use the pip 3. And if you don't have that, that means the Python 3.6 and greater than that, then you just need to search Python, and you can easily install this Python on your machine by going to this and download 3.9.1 or whatever the latest version of Python is. When you have done with that, you need to install your FastAPI on your machine. Yes, you can install it globally, or you can use the virtual environment. And if you don't know how to create a virtual environment, you can simply search venv in Python. And actually that should be venv, yeah. Google is smart. Okay, then you can go to this documentation, and it's very easy. Python 3, because we have a Python 3, then we can give this mode, which is going to be creating virtual environment, and you can give the name. Simple. And if we are here on the terminal, I can say Python 3. I need to create the venv, so venv. Then I need to give the name, and I can give the FastAPI env. Okay, once I have created that, then you are going to see we will have a new directory called FastAPI env inside the folder where I have run this command. So I ran this command on the FastAPI tutorials directory, which is this one, and inside we have a FastAPI env. Cool. Next, we need to activate this one. So how we can activate? On the Mac OS, this is the one, and on the Windows, you need to just run this file. So we need to say source, the name, bin, activate. Cool. So source, and after that we have a FastAPI env /bin/activate. Run it, and now you can see we have this FastAPI in the parentheses before all these things. That means we are inside of the environment. How I can show you that this is the correct thing? Simply, I'm going to say pip3 install FastAPI. That's how we install the FastAPI in our machine, or simply in our environment. Once we have done with that, we are going to hit enter, and it's going to install the FastAPI on your virtual environment only. And now you can see it's done, and it says you have a older version of pip, so you can run this command to upgrade it. So simply run this command to really upgrade the pip version for the Python 3. Okay, that's also done. After installing the FastAPI and upgrading the pip version, next task is to install the UV icon. So you can use the pip install UV icon. Standard version, if it's not on your system, you can generally use this normal version. So since I have Python 3, so I can use the pip 3. Then I say install UV icon. Hit enter and it's going to collect and install it. So easy. That's done actually. So I told you that we are on the virtual environment. So we have installed the UV icon, and if I try to get the version of this one, you can see we are having 0.13.3. But if I open the terminal without having any virtual environment, then if I try to run the version of it, you will see it says not found, because this UV icon is only installed in the virtual environment. So when you are not in the virtual environment, then UV icon is not available. So if you are not using virtual environment, that totally doesn't matter. It's just the preference. And if you are not using virtual environment, it will be available globally. Okay, so here I am on the VS Code and I am inside the directory where I have the FastAPI environment. Okay, so VS Code is smart enough to detect this is a virtual environment. So once I open the terminal, it's actually going to move me into this environment. So if I delete this terminal and create a new terminal, you can see it's actually activating the virtual environment. So that's done. What next we have to do? We have the VS Code ready. Let's go here. After installing the FastAPI, after installing this UV icon, next we need to create the main.py file. Okay, so create the main.py file. Here we need to import the FastAPI. So from FastAPI, here we have the auto suggestion because VS Code Python extension is installed. Import. We want to import FastAPI. That's very important. With the F capital, API is capital. Next, you need to create an instance of this FastAPI. So app is equal to the FastAPI, and we need to use this parenthesis. We are calling it. Next, we need to create a simple function, a Python function here. So def, you can name it anything. I'm going to name it index. And it's very important to return something. I'm going to return hey. Okay, so when you have done these three steps, then you need to start the server. Obviously, we will get error because we have not used this FastAPI till now. We have just created the instance. So let's open the terminal where we have this virtual environment. Then you will say UV icon, then main :app -- reload. And this is actually given in the documentation. Once you have done with all this code, you need to run the server. UV icon main :app reload. Okay, so let's hit enter. So it has created the server at localhost 8000. Let's go to the localhost 8000. I'm going to hit it and let's open like here localhost :8000, and you can see we are getting this error, detail not found. Okay, why we are getting this error? It says there is no path available. How we can define that this function actually going to handle the path? Here comes the FastAPI. We need to decorate with a @app, and this is the FastAPI. You can see we have created the instance app. Then we can say dot, and then we need the get path. So this is going to be the slash. Slash means the base URL, like localhost 8000. So once we have done with this, now you can see server has reloaded because we have used the unicorn main app reload flag. So that's why it's reloaded automatically when we change the file. Let's go reload this page, and yes, you can see we have this hey. Amazingly great, so easy. This is the way we create the API. Oh my god, just 4 things: import, instance, function, decorate. Done. 4 things and you are done with the API. This is the simplest thing you can do for any kind of framework. This is very nice. Next, you can see I am actually returning a simple string. Generally in an API nowadays you want to have the JSON. So simply you can use this dictionary kind of thing, returning a dictionary which says data is going to have another dictionary which is going to have name, which is going to have the value of Sarthak. Wow, we are using dictionary, and when we go on the browser, reload the page, and you can see we have the JSON returned. And this is, by the way, I have installed the JSON formatter Chrome extension. So generally you will see this kind of a structure, but since this is extension is installed, we have this very nice formatting. Okay, so we have the data and then we have a name Sarthak. Amazingly great. This is the simplest thing you can do ever on any framework. Cool. What if you want to have a route which says obviously not just the base URL, you also want to say /about. So maybe this is going to give me the about page. If I try to visit this, it says detail not found. This is the by default error from the FastAPI. But I want to create it. So I will create another function and I want to name it, let's say about, obviously. And then I'm going to return, obviously, one more time, data. And this is a formatting system you can have. And about page, what a very nice name. But to make this as a real path, I need to use the decorator of app dot get, because browser, from the browser we are giving the get thing, get method maybe, /about. Once I'm done with this, I save this file and you can see that server is automatically restarted. If I now go reload the page, you can see we are having data. Inside the data we are having this you can say list of the string, which actually I don't want. I want to have just the string. So inside the data I just want the string. Cool. So far we can create a route or path for the FastAPI and how actually we need to start the server. But let's now break it down step by step and see what is happening inside this FastAPI. But before that, you can see on the source tab here, which is not there because we have not initialized a Git repository here. So let's go on the terminal and I say git init. Once I did that, it has initialized empty Git repository. But next you will see we have a lot of file inside the Git. That is because we have this environment directory and the caching directory both tracked by Git. I don't want that, so I will say dot git ignore. First I'm going to add the cache file or cache you can say directory, and only 2 underscore. Then I want to add FastAPI -end, the environment directory. Also we need one more thing to add, which is this one, .ds underscore store. Yeah, once I save this git ignore file, you will see we don't have extra files, we just have the files we need. So finally git add all, then we need to say git commit with a message of let's create FastAPI. Let's learn FastAPI. Then just hit enter with this quotes, and that's done. Cool. So now to understand how FastAPI is working, first we need to go here in the main.py, which is obviously open. From the FastAPI we are importing FAST with the F capital, API as a capital. This is very important. Okay, then we are creating the instance of this app. So this app is actually very important. Actually, the name is very important. Why? Because if you go on the terminal and if you want to start the server, what you do, you will say uv icon and then you say main. But why main? Because the file name is main. It's a main.py module, Python module. Then colon, we define the FastAPI app or instance we have created. So the instance is app. That's why we say app. And since we also want to reload, then we say reload. But if you don't want, that's up to you. Hit enter, it has created the server, and if you go reload the page, yes, it is working. But what if I'm going to change the name from this app? I'm going to change to my app. Now, since the UV icon work like this, first you say UV icon, then the module, which is main, this one. But instead of app, now we have created the FastAPI instance as a my app. So here we need to say my app like this and then hit enter. And again, you can see server is running and it's very nice. So you have seen that it doesn't matter what you name it. It totally depends upon how you name, and the same thing comes here. So now you can see when I use main my app, it says attribute my app not found. Okay, so we can move it to app, and that's how it is working. So now let's start the server with a reload command. Reload, and it has started. That means it's going to keep tracking the changes. As soon as I save this file, you can see it has restarted the server. Now, similar to the name we have given as an app, same, it doesn't matter what name you give for this function. Here I have given index. You can give like ABC. Yeah, just save this file. There's no issue, and you can see even if I refresh, this is working fine. Same for any function you have. So now I say XYZ and it should work. It is for the about. Okay, let's try the about, and yep, about is also working. What if I say same name to these two functions? So ABC and ABC. Server is not complaining. What about this? Reload. Oh my god, this is the same. It's working. So from here, I can assume or I can pretend that, okay, this function totally doesn't matter. What matter is the decorator. Here we have an app, and then we have a get, because we want the get request, and the path we want. Next, I told you that the UV icon actually work very simply. UV icon, and then you define the module, which is the main. We have given the name of the file as main. What if we change the name? So let's change the name to Bitfumes. Okay, so now instead of saying main app, I would say Bitfumes app, and since we have given the name app inside the file as an instance of the FastAPI, so app, and then reload. Hit enter, and yes, it is also working. So you saw that this is absolutely amazing because everything is configurable. It's not like you have to use main, you have to use the app, you have to use certain name for the function. Very flexible. So that's why it is very nice. And let's get back to the main. And next thing we need to see is this names we have for the FastAPI, specifically this thing. In other app or framework, maybe you call it route, sometimes you call endpoints. Here in FastAPI, they call it path. So these are the path. This is the base path, this is the about path. Okay, then we have this thing like get. We can also create the post method, then we have a put method, delete method, and here actually we call them the operation on the path. So this is the path, and this get is a operation. Then the function above which we are defining the operation and the path using the app decorator. is called path operation function because this is the operation we are going to perform on this path with this operation. And this decorator is actually called path operation decorator. So once again, I'm going to repeat it. The function is called path operation function. This is simply the path. This is simply the operation. And this decorator is path operation decorator. So path operation decorator, operation, path, and the path operation function. It's not necessary to remember these things, but it will be good if you know the terminology of certain framework, what they call. It will be easy when you are going to read the documentation. So now let's move into the learning of FastAPI. On the base path, we just have the name and the Sarthak. But instead of this, let's create a blog system. So I want to fetch all blogs. So I'm going to use the index, and it's again, you can use any name. And here I want to fetch all the blogs. So here comes the blogs list. So I just going to have blog list. Obviously we are not going to have any database connection. We are not storing it. We will do that later. But for now, it's very easy. So we are having this blog list. Cool. Now, next task is to fetch a single blog. So how we generally fetch single blog? So suppose we have a path like localhost 8000 slash blog and then slash the number or the ID of the blog. So if I go, it says detail not found. So let's say I want to show a blog. And this means I want the path should be like slash blog slash ID of the blog, and then this ID is going to have here. But for now, we can see we are not having any variable called ID, and we want this to be dynamic. Like if I say 1 here, so that 1 should come here. So if I reload this, you can see 1 is there. So in FastAPI, whenever you need to have dynamic routing, then you just use these parentheses, these curly braces. Inside, you need to define the name you want to give. You can give any name. I want to have ID. You can like say blog underscore ID, but ID is fine for me. And then you can use that variable inside the return, or you can do something like fetch blog with ID is equal to the ID. But before doing or before using the variable, we actually need to accept that variable inside of the function, and we use the same name. So ID comes here, that is accepted by the function, or you can say path operation function, but short form is function, and then you can use that ID here. That's great. And now if I reload, yes, you can see it's 1. But if I say 100, now it has 100. This is amazingly true. Why? Because we can create any kind of routing. So suppose I just want to not just have the route, I also want to create one more routing. And that will be like app.get for the blog with some ID, but I want to show the comments. Okay, in that case, let's define comments, and here I need the ID, and then obviously fetch comments of blog with ID is equal to ID. We will do that later, but return, and here I can use a dictionary of the data, and I can say like comments is having some other comments. So there should be something inside that. Okay, so I did something wrong. It should be like okay, so we don't want that. So comment 1 is like this, and then comment 2 is like this. Cool. So this is done, and if I go reload the page and slash blog 100 slash comments and hit enter, you can see now we have a data of 2 comments, 2 and 1. So this is the simplest route we can create with the parameter. So this is important that this parameter name or the variable name you have defined here should be same inside the function, and you have to use that inside the function, and you can do anything with it. Now let's go to the browser and go to the blog slash 100. Here you can see, yes, I want this ID, and ID is a number, and here this ID is actually a string. I want the number, I don't want the string. So what's the issue? Issue is we need to provide the type of the parameter we need. So since from the browser, obviously we will get the string as a default one, but here I want to say that this ID, whenever this function is going to accept this ID, I want that to be only number. So for that I can use int. I'm defining the type. This is defining the type for the parameter. So here we have defined the ID should be int, and now let's go reload this page, and yes, you can see this ID is now not a string, it's a number. But since we only accept ID as a number, what if we provide ID something as a string? So I say my first blog. If I do this and hit enter, you can see we have a very nice error message. It says where we have a path ID, we have some message, value is not a valid integer. That's exactly we have given here. We only want integer int, and the type is type error of integer. And you have seen one thing, that when I have used 100 previously, if I am not defining this int, then it was string. So basically we get the string from the URL, and it's all done by the FastAPI to convert that string into the integer. We don't have to worry about the type conversion, and that's how we get this number or integer. You can define it as a string also. So if I say str string, then what's going to happen? Since, as I told you, from the URL we always going to have the string, so even if I have typed 100 as a number but we got string, so we are not going to have any issue here. Now let's get back with int, and here in this routes we have created, or the paths we have created, let's create another path, and this path is going to have the app.get for the blog with not the ID, I want the unpublished blog. So unpublished. Okay, so I want the list of all the unpublished blog. So it's very easy, unpublished, published, and here I just need to return the data which is going to have all unpublished blogs. Okay, so that's easy, isn't it? But let's try it. So I want blog slash unpublished. Why we are getting this error? See, it says value is not a valid integer, but this error is for the show method or the path of blog slash ID. Why it is not reaching this one? So see what's happening. FastAPI read the files line by line. So first it says, okay, let's match this path with the requested path. Requested path is blog and some text which is unpublished. Then it says, okay, let's match this one. It says blog and then something, and that something is matched. Unpublished is there. But then it will go into the show method. It says, unpublished is not an integer, so I'm going to give error. So that's why it is giving error. So this is the reason, because the FastAPI reading file one by one, line by line actually. So that's why it's never going to reach this one, since we have a dynamic routing after block. So if we want to have this working, we need to move this one especially above this dynamic routing. So now it says, okay, this path, okay, no, this is not matching. What about this block slash unpublished? Yeah, it is matching. So then when this is going to match, we will going to have, see this, all unpublished block. But on the same thing, we say block slash, let's say some number, we will get the number, because in that case blog and number, blog and 6757 is not going to match with this path. So it says, okay, I will try the next one. Then it will try this one, blog and then something. Okay, 6757 is a number, integer, cool, return this one. So whenever you create dynamic routing, you have to take care about these kind of route which matches the dynamic routing, and then you have to move these type of route above all the dynamic, not exactly all, but the same kind of dynamic route above all. So you have seen that we are having this type system and the data conversion. All these things are done with the use of Pydantic. So this Pydantic is a library which is going to hold all the data validation is performed under hood by Pydantic. So this Pydantic is amazingly great. You can see all these things are there. That means we can not only just use string and integer, we can also use like we can use float, we can use boolean and many other complex data types. We will talk about them later. Creating API is tough because sometimes you don't have any front end or any way you can test your API. But FastAPI is really amazing because it has a great feature of providing the automatic documentation with Swagger UI. So what is it and how it's going to work? Let's see. So yes, we have all these things and the server is running, I believe. Yeah, it's running. And now let's go here on the localhost 8000 /docs, and if you hit this route, you will going to have this Swagger API, Swagger UI actually. Here we will have all the API routes we have created. So you can see we have an index, we have an unpublished, show and comment. Same thing is here. So unpublished, index, show and comments. And isn't it cool if we can check something from here? Yes. So suppose I want to check that what if I pass some string instead of number here. So currently I want to try it out. So instead of number, I want to say I am going to pass Sarthak. Let's execute this one. So now as soon as I hit execute, you can see it is complaining that, hey, need the integer instead of string. So here we have, it is saying required. But if I say 1 2 3 and then hit execute, it's executed, no error. You can check the curl command it has done for hitting that route with the accept type of application JSON. It has requested URL, this one. Everything is cleaned and easy. We get the response of data with 1 2 3. You can actually copy this thing and just like you can paste it obviously somewhere, anywhere, and you can obviously download it. But you can check the response header. Content length is 12, type is application JSON when it has executed, and server UV icon. So this is how actually you can try it out, and you can obviously clear it so that it's done, and you can cancel. To close this out, click here, and once again you can check another route just like we did for the previous one. Click execute, everything is once again there with the response and super clean. So when this is useful, suppose you are working in a team, you are creating the API and someone is creating the front end or maybe mobile application, then that person is just going to open the server slash docs, and every API routes is available here. So good. This is really the best part of the FastAPI. One more thing is there. It's not just giving you the Swagger UI, but it also gives you the alternative API documentation called redoc. So how we open redoc? Just like we did for the docs, the Swagger docs. Now we need to say localhost 8000 slash, let's open in a new tab, slash redoc. And when we hit that, yep, you can see we have that one, and you can download the OpenAPI specification from here. It says FastAPI version 0.1.0, and the routes is given on the left side. This is unsuccessful show comment powered by redoc, and that's really great and amazing. So this is how actually you perform the validation or checking and looking on all the API, or simply the documentation of all the API you have created using the FastAPI. Isn't it very great? And this is the feature actually everyone is going to love. Here we are fetching all the blogs. I'm going to convert this to /blog to get all the blog. But if you try to get all the blog from your database, it is super inefficient. Why? Suppose you have 1,000 and 10,000s of blog in your database. Then if you're trying to fetch all the 10,000 at a time, obviously that is super inefficient. You have to limit. Or maybe you just want the published blog, not all the blogs. So what we can do, we can simply provide the query parameter. Here I can say I only want the limit to be 10, and I want published to be true. Then here I only get maybe I can use this to have the comment, only get 10 published blocks. Okay, so how we can do these things, like handling the query parameters? So we don't want to hard code these things. So let's go, and first you can see the server is running, and go to the localhost 8000. And by the way, query parameter things are given in the documentation, and you can check. And query parameters are like question mark, then name, and equal to with a value. So we are not having any base route, but we can go to /blog. Okay, so we are getting the blog list. Now I want to get limit to 10. And now if I hit enter, it's not changing anything because query parameter are not going to change your query. So what we can do, we can actually accept the query parameter just like we accept the path parameter. So this ID is actually a path parameter, and we are accepting that path parameter in the function. So same thing we can do. Yes, we don't see that query parameter, but we know if we get the limit parameter, then we can use that. So I can use the f string, so f, and here I can say limit. So blog list of, or I can say blog list, I can use it like this, 10 blogs from the database. Okay, this is the new one. Cool. Reload, and you can see now it says 10 blocks from the DB. This means if I change it to 50, the query parameter, I change it to 50, it should say 50, which is here. This is amazingly great because now we can have this parameter changing the real query, which we are getting it from here. I told you we also want some published blog. In that case, we need to provide second one with the and sign. So here I can say and then published is equal to true. Obviously we are not accepting the published, so let's accept it. Here we just need to give comma and then published. Cool. So since we are getting this published, let's use it somewhere. So I can say if the published is true because we are passing either true or false. If it is true, then return 10 published blog, I can say published blog, and else I can say return all the blocks. Return simply 10 blocks from the database. Cool. So reload and it says true, return 50 published block. What if I say published to false? Let's try it. It still says published because this time actually we have to compare it as a true or false. So what if I just try to get what is the value we are getting here on the published? So you can see we are getting as a string. This is not we want either true or false. That means we need the validation. Yes, you can do the validation on the query parameters also. So I just need to say this is going to be the bool. Yeah, super easy. So now reload and yes, you can see this is actually false. That means boolean. And if I return or actually go back to the true part, it's true as a boolean. This also means that if I return it, yep, 50 published block. But if I use the false and reload, you can see now it's not saying the published because this published is actually a boolean and it's checking the boolean thing and returning the next string, which is getting the 50 blocks. It doesn't matter published or not. This is amazingly great. But one more time, what if I'm not providing the published? So yes, since we need this published so that we can use this if else, so we need to provide it, and that's how it says yes, this parameter is actually required. And when you are not providing anything, then it's obviously required. So that means if I remove the limit part also, then also it says hey, limit is also required. But limit, let's say I want to make this limit as a default one. So default to 10. If nobody is giving any value, then it should be 10. So let's make it is equal to 10. If I do this, it says hey, you also need the published to be some default value. So yes, it is a bool and it need the default value as true. So we have defined the default value for both of these parameters. That means if I reload this page, you can see, yep, it is saying 10 published block because we have given the published as true. But as I said, I don't want, let's say sort. This is a sorting, like sorting from latest first. So if this is the one, this is not affecting, we are not using anywhere. So sort could be optional. So if I accept the third parameter, which is for the query parameter of sorting, now it says hey, you need to define some default value for the sort. But I really don't want, I don't care if there is a sorting or not. In that case, you already know that if we need something to be an optional thing, then what we do, we simply use the optional. So to define the optional field, we just need to say optional, and then we need to define the type of this, and type should be string. So str, and since this is going to be the optional, we can provide it the default value as none. Yes, this is great. And now if I reload this page, it's not saying any error. And yes, we have the error because we have to import this optional. So optional actually be imported from the typing system. Okay, so I need to say from typing import optional. Once I did that, reload, yes, you can see there is no issue. But what if I am not providing anything and I'm saying it's just an optional? Obviously this is going to break, since we can see the VS Code is also giving the same thing. So this is how you accept the query parameter, you define the type of the query parameter, you can provide the default value, and you can make some like query parameter as optional. Now let's go to another route or another path, maybe this one, the comments. We can do the same thing with the comments, but how FastAPI know that if this is a query parameter or a path parameter? So suppose I want to limit the comment to 10, so I just say 10, but this could be treated as a path parameter. No, FastAPI is smart enough to identify that if there is anything given in the path and that is accepted here, so this could be the path parameter. Otherwise, you are talking about obviously the query parameter. So in that case, we can say, yeah, this is 2, and what else we can say? For now, we can just say limit, and nothing came into my mind, so I just do this. So I need the blog /10, then comments, and 10 is there. So this is very silly, but we are getting the 10 comments when we are going to do the when we will do the real database part. Now, so far we have talked about how you can use the get method only, but we also have various other methods like post, delete, put. So generally we use post to create something. So let's now use the post method to create a new blog and see how we deal with that. So anywhere we can put our @app.post this time. You can see the VS Code is suggesting us, and then this should be on the /blog. That's very nice. And creating a method, let's say create blog, and then I simply say let's say I'm having a string called data, and then here I say message called blog is created. Cool. But then how we can actually test this post method? Because from the browser you cannot send a post method. But remember, FastAPI gives you the documentation, the Swagger docs. So we can say localhost 8000/docs. When you do that, you can see we have a new path defined as a post. So we have the post method, and let's click on this one. Now it says all the information about this post method, but we can have a tryout. We can have the tryout, and if we execute it, yeah, we have this. It says blog is created. Amazing. So this is working fine. But obviously, when you want to create a blog, you need to send the new blog information. How we can send the information here? Because when we clear it and try to execute, it says nothing. Something is given there, no parameters. So let's see on the documentation what it says. Okay, so I'm on the tutorial guide and request body. So here on the request body documentation, you see that it says when you need to send the data from the client, let's say browser, to your API, then you send it as a request body. But how you can define the request body? So to declare the request body, we need to use the pedantic models. And how we do that? First, we need to import the base model, so that whenever we create a class and we extend this base model, then we are saying to this class, hey, this class is now a model, a pedantic model. Then we simply define the parameters we need. And finally, we need to declare it as a request body. Okay, if this seems confusing, let's do in reality. Cool. So here I'm going to create anywhere actually. Later we will extract these things to a dedicated file, but for now we are doing everything here. I simply say class, and with a capital B I call it blog, because this should be the model. And then I want to extend this class with base model. But this base model should be from the Pydantic. So I can simply say from Pydantic import base model. Okay, that's done. So after this, what we have to do, we just need to use this blog, the model blog, and then here I can, let's say, I just say pass. Okay, here I need to define that the request body is called blog, and which is a type of the blog model. You can call it request also, like this. That's totally fine. So if we do this, so yes, we have not defined anything here, but let's see what our Swagger documentation says about this. Reload, and now when we do that, it's having a new thing called request body, which is required. And it says there is some schema. Obviously, schema is empty. There is nothing here, and example value is not there. So yes, it is not having anything. What if I try to return the request from here? Now, reload this page once again, and this time I want to try it out. So let's try out, execute it, and it return nothing because obviously we have not sent anything. So let's clear this one, and let me just zoom out and cancel it. Then let's go and define some fields for the blog. Obviously blog has the title. Title is going to be the string. Cool, that's great. Then we need the blog body. Maybe this could be the text field, and how we said that these things are going to be the text or a string. Next, this should have the blog body, that also has to be a string. Then what we need the published. So published at, this is actually going to be the optional field, because when we are creating, we don't want to always send the published at field. And this could be, let's say, not published at, it's simply published, and the type is bool, not bool. It's bool. Okay, so when we define the fields here, then we go to the Swagger documentation and reload. Cool, you can see we are having the values, we are having the schema. Schema says the blog need three things: title, body, and published. And make sure this is having this asterisk. This means these two fields are required and this published is not required. Okay, so let's try it out. So we say try it out, and we say string, no, not a string, my first blog. Cool. Now I want to execute it, and since we are returning the same request we are having here, this request you can see. Now I can actually say blog is created with, I can use the f string with, then I can say request dot title with title as this one. So one more time I'm going to execute the same thing, and this time it says blog is created with the title as my first blog. Cool. And this, as I told you, you can call it blog, you can call it request, you can call it anything, but generally from the documentation they call it a blog. Okay, so blog.title and execute, it's going to have the same result because it is the same thing. So this is how we actually create the model. This is the model, the blog model. Then we use that blog model here, and we get the values from the user to the API. So far we have seen various things, but how we can debug our FastAPI application? It's super easy. Suppose I want to see what are the parameters or what are the things I have on this blog. So blog is a request body, this one actually. So how we can debug our application? So the point where you want to check the status of your application at that moment only, you just need to go on the leftmost part, and we have this red dot. Everywhere you move your cursor, we have red dot. Just click on that red dot. It become the visible red. Obviously that was dull, and now it is clear. So this is actually the breakpoint. This means whenever you try to debug your application, then at this breakpoint, your application will going to stop, and you will get all the information about your application at that particular moment only. So yes, we have defined the breakpoint. Then what next? Next, you just need to press Command Shift and P if you are on Mac, or if you are on Windows, you need to press Control Shift and P, and then simply say debug. When you do this, and you just need to say click actually, and then choose the framework, which is our FastAPI. So launch and debug a FastAPI web application. This is by default you get from the VS Code. So yes, click here, and now you can see we are having this error which says actually application shutdown because localhost 8000 is already in use. So I can stop the server I already have, then try to debug once again. Restart FastAPI application, and this time you can see I'm going to have the localhost 8000. It's exactly same thing. So yes, it is working. The Swagger API is there, tryout is there. But let's try to execute this. Once we click on the execute, you can see it's loading, and we are moved here on our application. And in this application, you can see this red dot is now having some kind of arrow, and it actually describing that, hey, we are stopped at this point, or not actually stopped, we are actually paused at this point. Then you can go to the debug part here. This one is debug part, and if you hover over it, it's Control Shift and D for me. If you can see, you can say debug bar or debug what's that actually, debug, that's where we can find it. Yeah, this one. View show and run debug. So this one, so this is exactly the show and run debug. So here we have stopped our application, or actually paused our application, and we can see all the local variables we have. We have passed the body, the string, and published because it is true by default, since the default value of bool is true in Python, so it is true. Now you can change it to obviously false if you need, then that's okay. But we also have other fields and other things related to Python and FastAPI specifically. So this is the amazing thing to debug your application. Then you can move forward. So suppose I don't want to have the breakpoint here, I want to have the breakpoint here. So moving the breakpoint, restart the debugging, and then you can see we have all these things related to at that moment. We have options, we have a name of options, optional actually. Then we have the FastAPI application, everything is given there. The function variables, which is index, show, unpublished, comment, all these things, special variables, everything is given there. So this is how actually you debug your application using the FastAPI. But if you want to change the port also, suppose you don't want to have the localhost 8000, then you can change the port obviously. And to do that thing, you just need to say here at the bottom of the main.py, and just check if underscore or done name is equal to, once again, main. If this is true, then I can say UV icon, and I need to import it. So import UV icon, UV icon, like this. Okay, and then I say UV icon dot run, obviously running, Then I want to run it on localhost. But before, I need to provide app, and then comes the host, and host is actually 127.0.0.1, and then comes the port, and port is I want 9000. In that case, let's stop this debugging. Instead of using where is that? What's the issue? Okay, that's actually is equal to, and that's done, and I can simply use python 3 main.py, and that is all going to work on localhost 9000, you can see. And if I go localhost 9000, that's working amazingly fine. You can use obviously uv icon, so uv icon, I can use the up key. Where's that? Yeah, this one. So this is still using the localhost 8000, but for using the localhost 9000, you can directly use the python 3 and main.py. This is obviously for debugging purpose, and you don't want to do this, so I'm going to comment this. So let's move forward in the journey of FastAPI. Now it's time to go into the deep and start doing some CRUD operation using the FastAPI. How we can do this? Yes, on the documentation, if you go on this tutorial guide, here if you scroll down, you will find SQL relational databases. First, it says FastAPI doesn't require you to use a SQL or a relational database, but you can use it. Then you can use using this SQL alchemy thing. What is this? This is actually a Python SQL toolkit and ORM, or Object Relational Mapper. We will see what is this ORM later. And we're also going to look into the references also. How we can create this. This file or this documentation is very easy, but it is a bit long. And it takes time to execute all these things like creating these files and then see what's happening. But instead, I'm going to explain you everything step by step. So first, let us start creating the CRUD operation for a blog. How we can do that? Yes, I don't have anything. This main.py file is okay, but I want to create a new directory called blog. Inside this, I'm going to first say this is a Python module. For that, I need underscore init, one more time underscore, and then py. That's done as an empty file. No need to do anything. So this is done, but since I have removed the environment file, I want the new thing which is called requirements.txt. Okay, here I'm going to say I need the FastAPI, then I need UV icon, and that's cool. How we can execute this one? I need to say pip3, then install, then -r requirements.txt. And before that, actually, I'm going to create the virtual environment. So pip3, and then I need not pip3 python 3, and I need venv, and yes, I call it blog env. So yeah, it says you have created one. That's cool, no issues on that. So it's creating, and that's done actually. Next, I need to go inside of this, so I'm going to copy this one so that I don't have to write it. Okay, one more time, I'm going to create a, yes, the VS Code is helpful and it detects that there's a virtual environment. Let's go inside it. So it says venv, blog env. Cool. Now let's install every other thing we need on this what is this the virtual environment, and then I'm going to upgrade the pip also. While this is upgrading, let's create the main.py file inside this blog. So main.py, what happened? Main.py, And as we know, in this main.py, what we have to do, say from FastAPI import FastAPI, not this like API, and then app is equal to FastAPI, execute it. Finally, app dot, and we want the CRUD operation. So we start with the creating a blog. So to create a blog, we need to use the post request on /blog, then create a function called create, and then I'm just going to return creating. Okay, let's say yes, that's cool. And finally, everything is done. So what we can do next, we can start the server. So once this is done, yeah, which is actually done, we can say uv icon main :app reload. But remember, this main will execute this outer or root main.py. I want the main.py inside the blog. So what I can do, I can say blog.main app, and now it is done. That means if I go to the localhost 8000/blog, you can see it says and this is not a get method, this is a post method. So there comes the Swagger documentation, or here we have the blog post request. Let's open and try it out. Click on execute, it says creating. Very nice. But since it says there is no parameter, then what we have to do, we have to provide some parameters here. We can say I need title and I need the body. So after that, I can say title is going to be the title which we are getting, then body will going to be the body. After doing that, if we execute it once again and one more time, if we have to refresh, yes, now we can see we have these two fields. Then we need to say try out and say my title, my blog body, execute it, and yes, we are getting back all these things. That's one more time interesting, but you know, we never want to do these things directly. This is like we need the pydantic thing, pydantic model actually. So let's create a class called blog. We already know these things, that's why I'm doing it fast. And I need to define, and since we are going to create a pydantic model, we need the colon to define the type, and body is also going to be the string. Let's use it here, and I want to say this is going to be the request as a type of blog. So we need to use the colon, and then I return request. If I open it, the server is complaining and it says, hey, you have created this blog and you are saying that request is a type of pydantic type or pydantic field actually, which is a blog, but this blog is not a pydantic thing. What you are doing? So we need to extend the pydantic model. So one more time, from pydantic then import base model, and let's extend this blog class with a base model. That's done, and now no error here. This means one more time, if I reload, instead of getting a simple fields, we are now having this request body, and this is really amazing because now I can say my title, my blog body, execute it, and yes, we are getting the exact same thing. But this is very nice because this is a request body from the pydantic model. That's amazingly great. Now we need to store all these information we got from the request body into the database. For that, we need to first connect to the database. Let's see how actually we can connect our FastAPI with the SQLite database. But before, I want to do one thing. How about creating a new file called schemas.py inside the blog directory, and then move this class, this schema here. Also, we need to say the pydantic model import comes here. That's done, and this means I can say from dot, that means from the same directory, import me the schemas, and that's cool. And now it says blog is not defined, obviously, because now I say schemas.blog, and yeah, it's working again fine. There is no error. So reload and try out, execute, working. Cool. Let's create the database connection. So to create the database connection, one more time, let's go to the documentation of FastAPI and get at the top. First, it says this FastAPI need the SQL Alchemy. So if you go to the SQL Alchemy documentation, go to the library reference for version 1.3 or whatever version you are using, SQL ORM. And now what is ORM? Let's get back here. And now it says the ORM thing is like object relational mapping. So what is object relational mapping? It's actually going to map your object into the database field. And what is that actually? Suppose you have a pets table, then you create a class called pet, and this class is responsible for the table or the CRUD part of this table. So simply we are mapping, or SQL Alchemy actually mapping this pet class, this object, with the relation, the database. So this is very simple thing. Next, how we can create the database connection. Yes, it is given here. So all these codes are here, but the same is actually given in the SQL Alchemy. If you go on the object relational tutorial, you can check first what we have to do. We have to create the engine. So it uses in-memory SQLite database, and we need the create engine from SQL Alchemy. Let's start this. First, I'm going to create the database file. So database.py, and here what we have to do, from SQL Alchemy import create engine. So import create engine, that's done. Then we need to create the engine. So copy this and paste it here. But this is actually not in memory, it's going to be here. So I'm going to say blog.db. This is the one, the database I have created. So I say dot and slash blog.db. It's not now, it's not in memory, it's here. But what FastAPI says that, hey, let's create a variable called, or a constant actually called, SQL Alchemy database URL is equal to this one, and like this, and then use it here. So SQL Alchemy database, that should be once again database. Yeah, but next we need one more thing, and that we can see it's given here echo as true, but FastAPI uses connection arguments as false, check some thread false, this thing. Okay, so this is also done. What next? Go to the SQL Alchemy. After creating this engine, next we need to declare a mapping. So we need one more time, from SQL Alchemy extend declarative base, and then we need the base. So copy this, paste it, and finally we say base is equal to declarative base, like this. Cool, that's done. After that, what we have to do, it's given here like at the bottom somewhere. Yeah, session. We need to lastly create the session. From SQL ORM import session maker. So session maker, then how about creating the session? So session local, the name I want to give as a session local. Then it says session maker. Here first we need to say I'm binding this engine which I have created. Then I also need to give some other parameters, which is not given here, but we can get it from the FastAPI documentation. Auto commit, auto flush to false. Paste it. So that's done. Our database connection is set up. Yeah, first, if so, when you are first doing this, it is very overwhelming, but I can bet you this is not a rocket science. So you can see we are doing all these things, importing all these three things. Same here. Then we are defining the database URL. Same here. Then we are creating, where is that? Then we are creating the engine and defining these fields. So creating the engine. Then we define the session local, session maker. So session maker is there. Using that, we have created the session local, and finally declarative base. Okay, so yes, I have explained you how you have created this database connection, but how to use this database connection and where we are going to use it, that's another question. Now we have the database connection, we have the database, and how we can check that is there any table inside the database or not? Yes, we have created this table, this database, we know there's nothing, but let's go here on the table plus. This is a very nice software. You can install it for any platform, Windows, Mac, Linux, and just click on create new connection. Go to the purple one, which is SQLite, and name it anything you want. I want to name it FastAPI. Then locate the database path, which is inside my FastAPI tutorial blog, and actually blog.db. Click on test, everything is fine, save it, double click, yeah. So now there is no table inside this database. How we can create the table? First, when we want to create the table, we need to know what are the fields they're having, or is there any ID, is there any column? So everything we have to define. That's why one more time, let's go to the SQL Alchemy documentation. And you can see when we have created the base, then it says that, hey, next you need to create the schema for your table. And this is actually the schema, but they call it model. Okay. So here we need to create the user model, which is going to define all the fields and the table name also. How we can do that in FastAPI? In the FastAPI, you can see somewhere we have creating model, yeah, this one. So this is a creating model thing, and it is exactly same thing here because they are both are using SQL Alchemy. Now how we create it? Let's go and inside the block directory create a models.py file. Inside that create a class called blog, and remember here we need to extend this model with a base, and this is base from the database connection. So that means we need to say here we have a base, and I say from database import base, and then I can say this class is actually need the title field, which is going to be a column. And one more time, everything is imported from SQL Alchemy, so I can directly copy these things because we need everything. Okay, so column is there. Inside the column I need to define that, hey, it is an integer, and this ID is actually a primary key, so it's true, and it also be indexable, so index is true. Next I need the title, which is also a column, but this is a column of string. Next we need the body, one more time, a column of string. That's done. It is very simple. Yes, so we have created this model. Okay, how we can use this model? So one more time, go to the SQL Alchemy, and finally it's given everything. That's cool. Next, where we have, so we need to find a little bit. Actually we need to create this database. So which is I cannot find it here. No issues. We can go here and on the main.py file where I can find it here, you can see it says models dot base metadata create all. This line is extremely important because it says that this line is going to create the table in your database. So here there is no table. Go to the main.py and here finally I need the models, and from where I can get from dot import models, or I can directly say import models. Next, models dot base dot metadata dot create underscore all, and inside we need to provide the engine, the database engine. So here I can say I need the database, or instead of this I can say from database import import engine. Okay, so let's provide the engine. And is it good? Yes, it is absolutely fine. So we have done with this, and let's see, is there any error? Yes, we have the error. Now finally it says you don't have the SQL alchemy. No issues, because we have requirements.txt file and we can add it here. Then we can simply say pip3 install our requirements.txt, and this is going to install the SQL alchemy for us. Once we're done with that, we can do one thing, like we can save any file so that server is restarted or reloading. Now it says no module because I need to say dot database, and one more time I think, yeah, here also dot database. And next you can see it has actually executed this file, but then it says, hey, you don't have the table name here. So let's define the table name also, which is my table blogs. Cool. One more time, reload, and it started, application started, no error. This means you can see, reload this page, and yes, we have the table into the database. Cool. This is little overwhelming, so I'm going to recap all these things what I have done. So first, I have created a database with all these things. First, defining the path, creating the engine, then creating the session local, and creating the base. Then I have created the model. In this model, actually we are defining every field we have to be inside the table. So one model connected to a table, and this table is blogs. Then I defined that I need a title, body, and obviously the ID auto incremented thing. And this blog is actually a extended base of the database. Once we have defined the model, then we need to go to the main.py, and whenever we are running the server, we are going to create all the models into the database. That means we are creating, or we can simply say migrating, all the tables. And this is happening every time. That means if the table is there, it's not going to do anything, but if table is not there, it's going to create it. Isn't it amazing? This is now time to get back to our post request, and here we can actually store the blog information into our database. Okay, to have the database here, or the instance of the database here, what we need as a second argument, we say db. But if you return the db and go on the server is not complaining because it could be the name of your parameter, and reload the page, it's actually treating it as a query or the query parameter, but we don't want it to be query parameter. So I'm going to say this is going to be the type of session from SQL alchemy, and from SQL alchemy, and I can actually go to the database to find it. Reload. Yeah, import session. Okay, so we have defined it as a session, but then the server is complaining that, hey, this session you have defined as a type of the DB is not a pydantic thing. But first it says cannot import from SQL alchemy because SQL alchemy.orm. Even after that, it get an error and it says session is not a pydantic thing. So what we have to do, we have to say the default value is going to depends on a DB. So get DB a function we have to create, but before that we need to import the depends, and this is from the FastAPI. This is going to say that this is actually going to convert this session into a pydantic thing, but then we need the get DB connection, or first say get DB function. Inside I'm going to say DB is equal to session, can say session local, and remember this session is local is from the database, so we can say comma database, from the database import engine and session local, and then we can simply say trying the yield, the Python yield part. Okay, yield DB, and then I finally say I want to close the DB. So if everything is done, then close the DB or database connection. That's finally done. No error is there. That means if I refresh, you can see it's not recognizing DB as a query parameter, but still it's giving it. Okay, so if I execute it, we are not getting anything because we are just returning the DB. Next, what we have to do actually, we have to create new underscore block. And this new block is going to be the schema. We have to use the model, and we already have the models. So we can say models dot blog. So we are saying this is going to have the title field coming from the request dot title. Then we need the body field coming from the request dot body. Okay, then we need to say db dot add, adding new block. Then when we have successfully done with the adding, then we say commit, then execute it actually. And finally we say db dot refresh with the new block so that we can easily return the newly created block. That's easy, and that's it. So now one more time reload this page and trying out, click on try out. I say title and then my blog body, click on execute, and yes, you can see not only we are just getting the title and the body, we are also getting the ID from the database. This means if we go on the database, reload this, you can see we have one database blog entry. Wow, this is super. So using the FastAPI, we have created this thing, and this is really amazing. So what we did very simple thing. First we define the DB, and DB should be the instance or type of session, but session is a SQL ORM part. So we need to say the default value depends upon the DB. So once we do this, we get the DB instance. So yes, we say, okay, the new model or new blog is going to be the blog model. The model actually refers to the database structure we have created or table structure we have created. Then we say title is this, requested one, body is requested one, then adding it, then committing, then refresh so that we can return the newly created one. That's really amazing thing. Let's move forward. Now since we have successfully created the blog, it's time to actually get all the blocks from the database. So app.get and /blog, then defining a function, so def, and I can say get or all blog, whatever you want to say. Then this is going to return all the blocks from the database. How we can get that? So once we need all these things to get the database instance here. Cool. Then first we need to say blogs is equal to db.query and querying on model. So model.blog and this one. But next, how we can move ahead? How we can say I want all the blocks? It's very easy. Dot all. Yes, it is very easy. Then just return the blog we get from the query. This is actually going to create or execute a SQL query, and then we will get the blocks. Reload this Swagger documentation, and you can see now we have /blog for the all, and it's a get request. So when we try it out, when we execute it, you can see we have list of the blocks. So we have one blog in the database, so we are getting only one. What about creating another one? So let's create, and I can say blog number 2 and blog 2 body. Execute it. Yes, second blog is also created. That means if I can go to the get, execute it one more time. Yes, we are getting 2 blocks. Wow, amazing. This is very easy. So with this easiness, let's do one more thing. What is that? We can say, what about getting a particular blog with the ID? And we know we can pass parameter something like this and say def show, showing a simple or single blog. It get the ID, but we need the database instance, so getting the DB. Next we need to say the blog which we get from the DB dot one more time query on the models dot blog. But then we need where condition, but with this SQL Alchemy we don't have the where condition. So what we have, go to the documentation of SQL Alchemy, and here it says common filter operation. So how about this? Query dot filter and filtering model dot the field name with a value. Got it? Let's try. I want to say filter models dot blog dot id should be equal to the requested ID, but I don't want all because it's always going to give at least one or none. So I need the first. This is amazing call, which is first. That means only giving me the first result. Yeah. So let's return blog and try it out. Go reload, and we have 2 blog with the ID of 1 and 2. Let's try this. For the get request of blog /id, try it out, and ID should be 1. Click on execute. Yes, we are getting the first blog. See this one. What about if I say it is a 2? Execute second. But what if I say 3? We know third blog is not available. Execute. It says none. Yes, this is good, but we can return it in a different way. So let's talk about the response code and how we can respond with the different situations. Now see this thing. We have 2 blocks in our database. So if I execute, yes, we are having 2 blocks and we are getting 200 response. That's very nice. But what if we try to create a new block? So let's try it out, and I say block 3, so title 3, and then comes block 3. Execute it. That's great. We have created the new block, but still the response code is 200. Actually, when we create something, the response code should be 201. That's the original response code for created thing. So let's see how we can add the real response code. Once again, go to the FastAPI, and here on the tutorial guide, we can see we have a response response status code, this one. And here it's very easy. What you have to do on the parameter you have defined, you can see it says on the decorator part, actually you need to say the status underscore code and the real code. That's great. So let's go to the main.py, and whenever we are creating, so we have a create a post request. In this I can say comma, and you can see lots of things are there, but we need the status code. So status code, that's great, and it should be 201. So that's very nice. Let's once again go and try to create fourth one. So fourth one, title 4, block 4, execute it, and this time you can see it has 201 response code. That's an amazing thing we have done. But how do you know that what are the code for which response type? Generally you can see all the codes on this, maybe is it, yeah, here we have a Python documentation for HTTP status code, and here we can see 201 exactly is created, 20 is okay. So there is no hard and fast rule. Yes, you can return 200 for the created one, but this is the recommended thing. So we should go with the recommended thing. But instead, suppose I don't know what it will be the created code, or maybe I forgot it. How do I remember? Do we need to look into the Python every time? No. FastAPI is smart enough to give us all the codes in a very nice auto completion. So what we can do here, we can import the status from the FastAPI and then use it. How? Let's see. So let's go here, and first from the FastAPI I want to import status. Cool. Now go wherever you want to return or provide the status code. Instead of the number itself, just say status, and once you hit dot, yep, all the lists are there, and you even don't have to read them. Just continue. I want for the created one, and boom, autocomplete is there and it has done our task. So you can see this is now 201 created. Let's try once again, and checking the block 5, click on execute, and boom, 201. So it was amazingly great. So this is how we can actually return the status code for our responses. But still we are facing some issues. So see, here we have the getting of the block. So let's get a new block. So we know the latest block is with the ID of 5. Okay, let's try to get the fifth one. Try it out. Fifth, execute. Here, yes, we are getting the fifth one. That's because that fifth ID is available. What about 40? And we know that 40, the ID is not available, but still it's returning 200 and it's returning null. This is not a good response. We should give a proper response code plus a proper message. So first, let's see how we can give a proper response code. Once again, go to the FastAPI, and here at the bottom of this response status code, which we have already seen, you can see advanced user guide for the status code. You can click here, and here you can see when you want to return custom status code, you can do like this: response, then status code, and whatever status code you want to give. It doesn't matter what you provide here. If you do this part, then the default one will not be executed, but the custom status code will be executed. So for this thing, first we need to import the response from the FastAPI. One more time, let's see how we can do this thing. Okay, so here we are, and first, as I told you, I need the response from the FastAPI. Then at the bottom we have this blog ID, getting the ID, And here generally I provide the status code that should maybe here yeah, so status code will be 200. Okay, so yeah, that's good, and it was by default 200. But then I want to say if not blog, that means there is no blog, then I simply want to say response, but I need to add this response also. So response is a type of response we get from the FastAPI. Response dot status code is equal to, now since we have the status, we can use it, dot and not found. So not found. See, I don't have to remember anything. Hit enter and that's cool. But let's now execute it. So execute, and it says okay, 404, that means not found. This is really great thing. But for there we can also provide the details, and not details, just a detail maybe, and it's like blog with the id and whatever the id. So I can use the f string for Python is not available, and like this. Cool. So if there is no blog, we are going to return it, otherwise we are returning the blog. Okay, one more time, execute it, and now with the 404 we are getting a very nice response, and response says blog with the id of 40 is not available. What if I try to execute for the fourth id, that means id 4? Yep, we are getting the exact blog with the status code of 200, which is we want. But one more time, see, we are doing these two things, and FastAPI says okay, I know that you will going to do these things, so I'm going to have one thing for you. So for that you can search here http response what is that, http status, no, response, no. Okay, that's not there, so maybe I can go to the SQL database, and here at the bottom, or I can just search for http exception. Oh, that was exception. So here you can see when you want to raise new exception, says http exception, and this http exception should be imported once again from the FastAPI. Lots of things we are importing from the FastAPI. Then provide the status and provide the detail in one line. Okay, so let's try this out. Instead of these two things, I want to raise http exception. So first I can import it, http exception, and then I can say http exception. Inside this I want the status code, which again I'm going to use a status dot not found. Cool. And then I need the second parameter as detail, and I can copy this detail from here and pass it. Okay, that's done, and that's done means we can see here execute. Yes, block 4 is available, but block 44 obviously not available with a proper detail, exactly like previous one with a 404 response code. Okay, so that was really great, and how we can respond with a status code. When you create an API, it's absolutely important to provide a better status code so that the consumer of your API or the developer who is using your API will going to get the exact idea what this response is. And now let's work on the delete and the update of block. So it's very easy now. We have this create method, and after that we can say app.delete. So delete is a HTTP method to perform the delete part. So we say blog, but we need to delete a particular block, so we need the ID of the block to recognize it. But what should be the status code? Yeah, since we know we need to provide the status code, so we can say status dot, when we delete something, we are not returning anything, so it will be like no content. So no content, yeah, 204. Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. Now create a new function called destroy and here first I need the request, or maybe just I need ID actually, no, not request. Then I need the DB connection, so I can copy from there, paste it here. Next we need to find a blog, so let's find the blog. So blog is equal to models, not models, db dot query for the model dot blog, and then I want to filtering from the models dot blog dot id is equal to the given id, and then give me the first one. Okay, once we have this, then we need to delete it. But how do we delete anything from the database using this SQL alchemy thing? Whenever you feel these kind of questions, then you should go to the documentation. So SQL alchemy, go to the documentation on the library reference version 1.3, then you can directly search here. I want to delete something, so search it here, and I want the query API, this one. See, query API. Now it says query delete. Okay, so let's go here, and it's very easy. You just need to query, then filter, and instead of getting the first one, I want delete, and with some synchronized session. Okay, so that's something we don't have to care about for now. We will later see this thing. Otherwise you can read the exact options for the synchronized sessions, but for now we are going to use the same thing, false. So let's copy this, and instead of getting the first one, I want to actually delete the block. So I just say dot delete, and the code I have just copied. So delete and synchronize. Once we done with everything, then just say return, like here, and return done, or maybe we can say response done, or status done, whatever you want to call. So it's done for now. So here we are on the Swagger, reload, we have a destroy, try it out, and I want to delete the fifth one. So click on execute, and response is 204, no content, and that's how we are getting nothing, because it's 204. This means if I try to get the blog with the ID of 5, it should not available. So return, but it is available. Why? Because remember, whenever you do something on the DB, then you actually need to commit the changes. So I just, actually we don't need this blog, and why we have this, no issues, db dot commit, and once we commit this, then we will going to have that delete perfectly fine. So once again with the 5 ID, execute it, it says done, and now if we try to get the fifth blog, you can see it says blog with the ID of 5 is not available. So this is the delete part, or how we can delete the content. If you want, you can actually return something like the blog is deleted successfully, this kind of message, but that's totally up to you. So this is a very nice way to delete. Okay, so that's nice, but still the update part is remaining. And now after the delete part, we need to update the blog. How we can update? One more time, we need to create another parameter. So dot, this time I'm going to use put method, and put on a blog slash id, and here I want the status code should be once again accepted. So status dot accepted to 02, that's good. Definition, or the function method, or whatever you want to call, so it is good, and we need the id. then we need this time the response. So request actually, not the response. Okay, so this response should be the schema.blog, and then finally we need the database. So we can copy and paste it, and here for now I'm just going to pass. So see, this request is a schema.blog, and this is the same thing we did here on the create. Remember, this request means whatever we pass from the browser or from the Swagger. So once again refresh this page, and now we have this orange one which is put for update of the blog. Click here, and here we are having this schema. This is coming because of the, where is that, yeah, here, because of this request. If I remove it, and now if I refresh this page, you will see that yeah, we don't have the schema. So that's why we need the request body, or the which is going to be the schema of blog. Okay, so we get it. One more time, how do we update it? This is a question. The answer is on the documentation of the SQL Alchemy. One more time, I need the search bar, and on this I'm going to search update, and I need the query API. Query API is here. Click on this update, and this time you can see it is here. It says you just need to query on a model, then you need to filter, get that one, and update with the fields you want. One more time, you can use the synchronize session, or you can use evaluate. You can read about that, how they are doing, or what are these things. But what we need to remember here, that this method is a bulk operation. So suppose you have a user with the email, two users with the same email, suppose, and you are updating. So that's going to update on both of the user. So this is a bulk update. Okay, so that's cool. Just like with the delete, we don't need to get the like a first or all. We don't have to do that thing. Finding, like filtering, and then directly update it. Let's try it. So since we have it, so I say db.query, query on model.blog dot filter, filtering models dot blog. One more time, but blog.id should be equal to the id, and after this I need to update it. But what I have to update? First I need to pass the title, and it's a dictionary. The title should be updated title, like this. Okay, but then we need the synchronize what's that, synchronize session, I think. Yeah, so let's see what's going to happen if we are not doing these things. So one more time, I just need to return, maybe you can return the blog, or you can return the request. So I just return that updated successfully like this. So let's try this thing. So reload, and now we have a schema. This time I want to update for the fourth blog, and this time I say updated, and that doesn't matter because we are not using it currently. So click on execute, and it says updated. That means if I try the fourth one, try it out, fourth, execute, and it's not updated. So remember one thing, we need to use the db commit. So db.commit, and that's good. One more time, let's go on the put, providing the id as 4, and title is good. Click on execute, it says updated. Now go to the get a particular blog, providing the id as 4, click on execute, and this time it is updated title. But what we need to update with the text we are getting from here. Since we are passing the dictionary from here, or it's like a JSON, so it's going to parse it, and we can directly pass the request body. So we are passing full request here. That totally mean that I can say updated title again, and body also updated. Click on execute. It says updated. That means this time if I get the blog with the ID of 4, click on execute. Yes, title is updated and the body is updated. So both are successfully updated. That's really great thing. So this update part is fine, but one more time, what if we try to update a blog which is not available inside the database? Let's try to execute it. It says updated 202. Obviously this is incorrect. So first we need to check if blog is there. If there is a blog, then update, otherwise raise an exception. So I'm going to cut the update query, and first I say blog is this one. I'm not doing dot first because we don't need it when we update. So that's how it's just a blog. Then we say if not blog dot first, then I need to raise HTTP exception, and here I can say status code is a status dot not found, and obviously the detail is like using f string blog with ID of this ID not found, and